Hello everyone. In this video, let's discuss about SwiftLint, which is used for static analysis actually. So let's first discuss about what does it mean by linting. So let me open a normal. So this is, so we are discussing about SwiftLint. So for that, let's discuss first what does it mean by lint. Linting is the process of analyzing code, typically source code in the programming language, to find and report potential errors, bugs, stylistic issues. Example like one developer gives a space and another developer doesn't give a space. So these we call it as stylistic issues, new lines, example. And adherence to coding standards and conventions. Linting tools, often referred to as linters, examine code for patterns or practices that might lead to errors, poor performance, or code that is hard to read or maintain. So that's what we call it as linting. So SwiftLint is used for linting the programming language Swift. So SwiftLint is we can use in our project by using the pod or by using by installing it with the homebrew, but I feel like using it using the Cocoa pods is very simple, where you just add in your pod file pod of SwiftLint, and that comes into your pods file, and you go to your build phases and add in your build phase that you want to use the SwiftLint. Okay, it's as simple as that. So how to use the SwiftLint is as simple as you go to pod file, you put the SwiftLint, you go to your target, in the build phases you add the run script phase. Why? Because this is the static code analysis that we do. That means we figure out if there are any coding related linguistic stylistic issues at the time of compilation. When you build the project, there we sometimes give code linguistic stylistic issues as warnings, and at certain point of time we give it as error. So we these all happens at the application build time, not at the runtime. So we call it as static analysis, for which we use different tools like SwiftLint format. So we're discussing SwiftLint in this tutorial, and also one thing what we need to do is we need to mention the YAML file, SwiftLint.yml file. This you add to your project, in which literally we use the configurations. So coming to configurations, there are that's pretty much we call it as SwiftLint. SwiftLint is a tool to enforce Swift style and conventions, keeping a code base consistent and maintainable in a project with a team of developers. Sometimes may be very hard, different conventions and styles. So let me quickly build it and show you what it gives and what are the advantages of having it. So my YAML file, instead of all this, these are all I am disabling, but I don't want to disable all this. By default, see, I have done nothing, but see, it is able to give me the vertical white space violations, line length violation. Line should be 120 characters or less. Just a second. So line length violation, line should be 120 characters or less. Currently it has 140 characters. Line length related, this also we can set it. And unused optional binding. So optional binding, we are using it, but it is suggesting that if you are not using it, why don't you use it? Dot is equal to nil. So this and all, it's not an error, it's not something that will crash the app or something, but these are best coding practices. So if we use these linting tools at the time of for static code analyzing, at the time of build it happens, so that these warnings help developers that to be in sync. That means, for example, this spacing, this extra space is not required. If I build and run it, this warning is gone. Correct? So that's so. For example, this is an extra space. I build it, so this warning is gone. So these are some best practices, like in the configuration file, in the SwiftLint configuration file, we can there are many configuration files actually. When it is coming to SwiftLint, there are many configuration that we can add, like we can add how many we can add disabled rules, we can add opt-in rules, we can add analyzer rules. So different rules we can add. For example, let's add couple of configurations so that we can better understand what does it mean and how it actually works. Okay, so just a second, let me quickly get into this and add one. This pod file, I'm not going to touch it, but I'm just going to touch the SwiftLint configuration, where now we start adding some lengths. Let's say line length, what it was complaining, line length, just a second, line length, it is complaining that 120 characters. So instead of this, see, this is the, this we call it as identifier. Okay, this identifier you can go ahead and here go ahead and add it as line length, and you can mention, for example, if you are not happy with this, you can mention it as, see, line length got changed. Line should be 150 characters or less. Currently it has 179 characters. So I just want to get rid of all that. Why? Because I'm okay. See, all these are gone. So like this, it is having some attributes. These are all the different identifiers that SwiftLint is having. For example, I can write that line length I can write and related to weak delegate, a delegate has to be weak, that I can force it, something like that. Shorthand operator, shorthand optional binding, body length, file length shouldn't be of 500. So something like that, like for example, let's say file length, if I go here and if I search for file header, not file length, okay, this is the identifier. So this I keep it here, and if we can write it as warning and error as well. So here warning, I'm sorry, so if it is, let's say I'm just giving warning and it will end up with error if it is having 15. I'm just giving it as an example. See, it has come. File length value, file should contain 10 lines, or it just giving. Usually we go with the 500 plus, but I'm just giving. So in the configuration file we can add something like this. So this is the configuration. If you want like warning colon this, warning colon 5, warning, something like that, you can give. So this configuration you can pretty much get it from the if you have SwiftLint installed, then you just type SwiftLint rules. There you can see this is how you get everything with warning ignores empty lines, false. So this is what error, max empty lines, vertical white space between cases, unused setting, type underscore name, type safe array, unavailable function. So anything, what is the severity, what is the, so everything that comes in the form of identifiers. Okay, so yeah, we tried couple of those. File length, let's delete that file length. Usually that's not the case, and we can give it for variable names, variable identifier names, like minimum length. What is the minimum length, what is the maximum length, like that we can give anything. And there is something called disabled rules, which was there earlier when we have seen. So by default all these configurations are enable, opt-in this as per this configuration. By default all are yes. So if you want to disable few rules, for example, I don't want vertical white spacing, I don't want it to complain about vertical white spacing. So functional body length, line length, legacy constructor, notification center, opening brace, closing brace, everything we can give. We just need to play with it. For example, vertical white space is not, it's something I want to ignore it. As you can see, vertical white spacing is gone. If it is not there, if you can see vertical white space violation, correct. Here vertical, for example, I'm like, okay, okay, line length violation should be 120 characters. Line length violation, I don't want this line length violation, so I give like line underscore length. I don't want this, I'm okay. Lines having, so if I can see, everything is gone. Trailing white space violation, so what is the identifier? I take the identifier and here I put it. These are all the disabled rules. Why? Because by default everything will be on. So we have something called disabled rules, we have something called opt-in rules. That means opt-in rules, some rules are turned off by default, so you need to opt in. So these are rule identifiers turned on by default to exclude from running. Okay, these are opt-in rules are nothing but some rules are turned off by default, so we need to opt in. That means empty count, something like that, empty count. So if we can go by default control statement, empty count, let's say empty count by default enabled in your config. No, so these are not enabled in your config, so that we can opt in, or we can write the opt-in rules. Like for example, okay, I want to have empty underscore count, or let's see, or let's see any other rule. File header, file forecast, file header, let's say. I don't know what is this, but let me unused optional binding opt-in rules. So why? Because I have mentioned it as disabled rules, everything is gone. Now I think this also I can go ahead and mark it as disabled. So this is one way of disabling. And instead of this, why? Because each and everything I need to give it. If I don't give it, see, everything is coming. For example, in this so and so, I don't want so all the rules to be applied. So then what can I do is I can totally give something like just a second, there is something called disable all, SwiftLint disable all, just a second, disable all, I think disable all. Okay, I'm giving blanket and all should be re-enabled before. Okay, this is blanket disable, so I should not be doing that. So at the end of the file I should be mentioning like enable all. Why? Because only for this file I don't want SwiftLint, I want SwiftLint to be disabled. So as you can see, this file is gone. So view controller also, I'm like, just ignore my file, I don't want SwiftLint to be applied to it. So what I do is boss enable all, disable all. So you just forget about the SwiftLint here, done. So like that I can, but I can't give some blanket. Why? Because blanket disable command violation, blanket disable command. This disabled all rule should be re-enabled before the end of the file, blanket disable command. Okay, so like that also we can give. Now again in view control it will start showing. So it is as simple as in your YML file, you go here, play with each and everything. For example, colon is needed, closing brace, for example, closing brace, closure body length, attributes, array init, explicit self, first where, force try, identifier name. For example, identifier name, let's try. Identifier name, how can I, for example, I can try like identifier name, for example 10, or min length, we can we can use minimum underscore length or error. Minimum length is only 5. Error is if it exceeds 10. Min length should be 5, but whereas if it exceeds 10, then we again, so if you go here and here it is, okay, this is not needed, okay, this is also not needed, okay, this also I'm correcting so that I will not get any SwiftLint here. Identifier name violation, variable name should be between 5 and 40 characters long. Identifier name, variable name should be between 5 and 40. That means it's not taking our given value, so we see identifier name. I think here we see better. Identifier name, we need to give min length. Okay, let's give min length value. Minimum length is 10, I say. Okay, so if I give it is saying name violation, variable name app should be between, variable name app should be, so it has come like this, and identifier name should be between 10 and 40 characters. I think 40 also it is taken from somewhere, we can override that as well, but minimum we are able to override it. So maximum, let's say instead of 40 I would mention it as 20, I don't know. Variable name should be between 10 and 40 characters long. So if I see it, so let me see what it gives me now. So I think it is more than 40 something I am giving, then it will be like must have identifier name violation, variable name app should be between 10 and 14 characters long, must have consistent white spaces on both sides, so this has become an error. Identifier name violation, variable name 10 and 40, now it has become an error. It's not, somehow it's not taking the error, but maybe it's not identifier name or type name, yeah, somehow it's not taking the error, but I think we can play with it by using these identifier and mark, reduced intro, unused import, void return, variable to do, toggle bool, prefer nimble, period spacing. Nesting line length, let var white space, legacy random, last where invert, forecast, force try, file length, file name, everything. All these things we can try with it, and we can, and analyzer rules runs explicit self something when we use Swift analyze. When we use Swift analyze at compile time, these analyzer rule runs. Opt-in rules are something like as we can see, opt-in rules are some rules which are enable rules that are not part of the default set. The special all identifier will enable all opt-in linter rules except the ones listed in disabled rules. So these are opt-in rules which are turned off by default, so we need to opt in, which are turned off by default. So these we need to opt in, and disabled rules we can disable which are turned on by default. So generally we don't disable any rules, we want all the rules to be running. Opt-in rules, so it is giving everything, name, so by default it is saying it is between 3 and 30. I don't know from where it is taking, but that's fine. So pretty much, yeah, and also we can write our we can write our custom rules, and we can write our regex custom rules also. For example, if you feel like some variable names are not permitted, some abusive names or some meaningless names are not permitted with a special character or some characters, that rules also we can write our custom rules. We can go to GitHub, SwiftLint GitHub, and see the documentation where we can pretty much understand how we can create the custom lint rules, for our own purpose. And yes, so pretty much we can write our this is a single configuration file YAML, and for some files we can write one configuration, and for some files we can write some another configuration file. So that can also be done. So I'm not going in depth. Why? Because for this it's not needed. I just wanted to explain what is the purpose of lint, what does that mean by linting, how we can use the lint, and what is the configuration file. A simple example, for example, if I need to have all the vertical violations or something like that, if I want to use all the default configurations that are given by the SwiftLint, that I just wanted to explain. And for example, let's say different for example, if I give something like this, so let's see colon spacing violation, colon should be next to the identifier. When specifying it, colon should be next to the identifier, like this it should be. Otherwise there is something called, so these and all you can play with it, colon spacing violation. And forecast, avoid using force cast. There is something called force cast. So how it is for example, let's say let val is equal to some value, for example where some value string, okay, some value as int, let's say. For example, let me correct this. So see, cannot use instant member somewhere within property initialized property. What happened? Okay, let's not worry too much about it. I'll put it here. Okay, variable first in place, never mutated. Okay, that it is a normal build warning. Next, let's say name. Or let me show you a simple, like instead of this, for example, if it is like user underscore name something like this, then again to identify name violation, variable name username should only contain alphanumeric and this is also from identifier name. So it is giving error if I don't follow certain conventions, correct? So this can be like name. Now trailing comma should be used in collection literals. For example, where r is equal to 1 2 3, trailing, okay, trailing comma, if we have to use opt-in rules, trailing trailing comma spacing violation. So trailing underscore comma, these are not optional rules. Maybe these are okay, not like this. Maybe I need to use it. Trailing comma is basically, trailing comma should be used in the collection literals. Okay, next, type name should follow specified naming conventions. Let's identify names. We discussed cyclomatic complexity function, parameter count function should not have too many parameters, that is also one thing. And colon, we discussed control statement, avoid if, for, while and repeat statement without a curly brace. Forecast, let value some value. Post try, file length we tried, trailing comma we tried, type name we tried, unused closure, variable name, user count we tried. So yeah, these are some commonly used SwiftLint violations where we can simply fix this. It's not a big deal, but these are good to have. Some two vertical spaces, this is not good, this unnecessarily increases the white space and all. So yeah, there are a lot. I think if we can sit and empty parameters, or I think here it is giving good explanation. Trailing white space, warning type body length, when it should be a warning type body length. For example, in a Swift, for example, let's try this type body length, right? So type body length, let's try. Warning, let's say 10, error, let's say 20. Product, let's say if I func test one, this the body length, right? So let me try to type, this is a type, correct? It is a type, the type body length we are talking about. Now let me test 2, test 3, test 4. I think that's fine. 2, 3, 4. If I build it, trailing white space line should not having trailing white space. Okay, let me add some print statements, something. These are just two. Type body length, I think this I have not put it in the correct space. Opt-in rules, let me try to put it in the, oh sorry, I think it should be like this. No, it is failing, that means okay, let me put it here like this. Type underscore body underscore length, warning. Oh, this is what I missed. Warning. Maybe colon is the problem. Just a second. Maybe not here. I need to put it here. I think analyze the rules are not. So since I am putting it here, I think I don't need this. Okay, so I think I need to add the include statement, which earlier which was there that I forgot. Yeah, included this. Now I can write a type body length. Now it has come. I think include configurable rules can be customized from this. Configurable rules included everywhere, included case sensitive paths to include during linting, excluded. So I can write included as well as I can write excluded. That means these will be opt-in rules also, analyzer rules also again here, and here I can mention like what and or include, and I can write excluded as well if I feel like okay, so and so file I don't need it. For example, all pods are not needed. For example, so and so file, something like that. So included, I have included everywhere. So type body length, for example, if it is more than type body span, type body length violation. So here it is having more lines. So again here type body should be 10 lines, correct? So to fix this, it got fixed like this. So just play with the configuration file. So then we will understand. You can disable the rules which are by default on. You can opt in for the rules which are by default off. Analyzer rules, we can write it when this will execute it when we use swift analyze in the prompt which I have just swift analyzed we can. And swift rules, you if you have SwiftLint installed, you just type SwiftLint rules and it will give what is the identifier, what is the opt-in, what is correctable, enable in your configuration file by default or not, what is its kind. It's performance related, it's lint related, it's just style related, metrics related. So performance related, we should be very careful. Okay, this will affect the performance. So these are all different characteristic kinds of linting. Analyzer, so which are analyzers, so capture underscore variable is happens only when you do analyze, and these are configuration. So you can configure what is the severity, warning. Severity you can mention it as warning, but sometimes if I, for example, if I just want to severity, right? So body length, let's say function body length, type body length, right? Here severity is not there. Why? Because warning and error is there. Trailing white space, I can mention. Some I can mention it as, for example, currently these are coming as warnings, type body length violations, so I can put these as line length violations are coming as warnings. If I feel like no developers are not doing the good job, then I can, instead of warnings, I can put these as errors so that your build will never be successful. That's how also I can enforce the rules to the developer, saying, boss, you need to make sure everything is the linting is working fine. Okay, so that's pretty much the pod file. You SwiftLint and you go to targets. In the build phase, you mention saying that I'm using the lint. Then you go to the configuration, play with the configurations. There are n number of configurations, whereas identifier basis, opt-in rules are there, type kind of linting is there, configuration is there. This is very important. So try it, and this is a very good static analysis of your application. And this is in today's world, this is very common using SwiftLint. That's how the architects enforce rules to the developers, so that every developer will be in sync with respect to the coding standards. I hope this post is useful. Thank you.